Chen Xiang found one cave inside the cliff inside the perishing dragon mountains, in which he took the 4 true elemental dans, entered a cultivation state, and digested the vast true qi brought by these 4 true elemental dans. At this time what he need to do was compress a large amount of true qi into each of the divine beast forms, making the beast forms clearer. He had the yin and yang divine veins and the tai chi divine exercise, which could allow him to quickly refine the vast amount of true qi, and at the same time could suck in the rich spirit qi around him. Chen Xiang was now not only cultivating true qi but also at the same time using a large amount of true qi to nourish the skeleton inside his body. A large amount of true qi was integrating with his body, making his body grow. 4 days passed by, and the 4-colored mist shrouding Chen Xiang's body suddenly spread out, only to see a stream of bizarre and powerful qi flows suddenly surging out from the Chen Xiang's body. Chen Xiang was already successful in completing the 4 beast forms in the 4 corners, making the 4 true qi beast forms clearly discernible and lifelike. Unconsciously his consciousness entered the dantian within that Tai Chi yin and yang diagram, like as if he was the one with the yin and yang diagram. At the moment it was as if he was sitting in the center of the yin and yang diagram, and he was at the center of the universe, and the 4 divine beasts were blazing suns hanging in 4 directions, looking magnificent and breathtaking. In the east was a dazzling azure light, the azure dragon was opening his mouth and waving its claws. In the south there was a giant, red bird, whose whole body was surging with fiery light, as if was burning with intense fire. It was the vermilion bird. In the west, shining in a holy white light, was the furiously glaring majestic white tiger. In the north was a mighty giant beast as if a giant dragon and a giant tortoise had fused together. It was the black tortoise. Yin and yang represented the whole universe, and this world was guarded by the divine beasts of the 4 directions. The bodies of the 4 divine beasts were exuding vicissitudes of an ancient atmosphere, making people feel as if they had existed since eternity, and Chen Xiang, who was in the center of the Tai Chi yin and yang diagram, felt even smaller. However, he knew, he was the master of the Tai Chi yin and yang diagram, and these 4 ancient divine beasts were created out from his cultivation. Chen Xiang only now knew that the Tai Chi divine exercise, and the divine exercise of 4 symbols, after coordinating with his yin and yang divine vein was actually so powerful. He felt that he entered a martial arts road that was unusual, and if he could only release the complete power of these beast forms, he would be able to dominate the world. Only the great earth divine elephant is left. Chen Xiang was also secretly shocked by the true qi contained in the true elemental dan, and although it was only 2 grades higher than the true qi dan, there was a huge difference. Chen Xiang took out all of his true qi dans, and as if he was eating a meal, he stuffed them inside his mouth, and fiercely chewed, while at the same time operating the divine exercises to refine them. Fortunately no one saw him wolfing down the true qi dans, otherwise they definitely would have wet their pants. Only Chen Xiang, this monstrous genius alchemist, would eat the true qi dan in such way, and yet was not even sad. Chen Xiang faintly felt that the beast form guarding the center was completely congealing its form. The amount of true qi required was a lot more when compared with his other beast forms. He could see in the center of the Tai Chi diagram, the vague beast form was shrouded in a ball of golden mist, and was non-stop engulfing that mist. 2 days passed, and a golden qi burst out from Chen Xiang's body, followed by a gushing of colorless true qi which shattered his clothes, only to see his body constantly alternating between 5 different colors. His muscles also swelled up making him look very scary. His body color was changing faster and faster. Even from his pores a dark gray mucus was overflowing, and the muscles of his body were also stiff as stone. An explosive sound resounded in his mind, and at that moment, he just felt a tremendously huge strength surging into his limbs and bones, while in his mind the roars of the 5 divine beasts were resounding. Their roars were very loud and powerful. Chen Xiang opened his eyes, took a deep breath, and his face was brimming with happiness, because he had finally entered the 10th level of the mortal martial realm, the completion stage. The only thing left for him was to impact the true martial realm. Seeing the giant elephant above the Tai Chi yin and yang diagram in HS Dantian, Chen Xiang slightly smiled as he had successfully congealed the 5 divine beast forms in his Dantian. The minutiae of their forms were clearly visible, and the Tai Chi diagram was slowly and quietly spinning, uptaking the spirit chi between heaven and earth. True martial realm, I also dare to fight with them. Chen Xiang tightly clenched his fists, his nails deeply entered in his palm. Previously he remembered the 2 vicious women, and he could not help but get angry. After you've entered the 10th level of the mortal martial realm, although you indeed are very powerful but you are facing true martial realm experts so you still have no chance of winning. If you had a slightly powerful spirit weapon, perhaps you would successfully be able to sneak attack, Su Meiyao said, and she knew what intentions Chen Xiang had in his heart at this moment, but she also knew the difference between Chen Xiang and true martial realm martial artists. After entering the true martial realm, martial artists would be reborn, washed of the mortal qi, and would have a lifespan of 1,000 years. By no means would a mortal martial realm martial artist be able to fight them. Chen Xiang nodded his head, took out black tights, wore them, and jumped down from the cave. He walked, according to map, towards the heavenly dragon treasure. The map was very detailed, and Chen Xiang soon came to the location marked for the hidden treasure. It was a huge canyon, and at the entrance of the canyon there were thousands of people gathered. Among these people, a lot of people were holding a sheet in their hands which was the map, but Chen Xiang also wasn't clear why this map was spread. Mixed in the crowd, Chen Xiang was clearly able to see the giant canyon, and what made him shocked was that in the middle of canyon, to his surprise, a fiery red aura was flashing. Occasionally a few red lightnings were also flashing, and one after another, intensely hot and violent chi waves were gushing out. At this time, Chen Xiang was sure of that the heavenly dragon treasure was inside this mysterious realm, and that fiery red aura in the giant canyon was the entrance. Chen Xiang soon found out that a very strong barrier was before that entrance. In addition to this, he also came to know that if anyone besides martial artists at the true martial realm tried approaching it, they would be rebounded by that power, and if they forcefully tried to enter it, they would be subjected to such a force that they would be squeezed into pieces of meat. After learning this information, in his heart, Chen Xiang was delighted. He quickly found one relatively high location, and carefully swept through the people towards the center to find that azure gown girl. That azure gown girl's strength was below the true martial realm, and her teacher was a true martial realm martial artist. That was why her teacher definitely would have entered the mysterious realm to seek treasures. This way, as long as he found that azure gown girl, he would easily able to kill her. He didn't have to spend too long. Chen Xiang saw a dozen people sitting together far away, and some of those people were young. In addition to the azure gown girl, there were some boys, and they were surrounding that azure gown girl like how the stars surrounded the moon. Chen Xiang from afar could see that azure gown girl had a long face because her demon beast was killed by Chen Xiang, and she was powerless in killing Chen Xiang. This especially troubled her heart. The azure gown girl accidentally glanced towards the side of the crowd, but suddenly saw that deadpan handsome face of Chen Xiang. Looking at him, she could not help but be surprised for a moment, and in her heart she was very pleasantly surprised. She certainly would not have thought of Chen Xiang having the strength to kill her, and she also knew although Chen Xiang was able to flee, he was also seriously injured. Senior brothers and junior brothers, that is the brat who killed my little black. Although he is somewhat powerful, but he was struck by my teacher's palm, so he is definitely seriously injured. You go and catch him. I want to hack him into pieces. The azure gown girl's face had a ruthless look while she spoke. In the distance, Chen Xiang could hear the words spoken by the azure gown girl, and in his heart he was constantly laughing. Currently he was at the 10th level of the mortal martial realm, and was an invincible-like existence among the mortal martial realm martial artists. Even if 10 martial artists at the 10th level of the mortal martial realm tried to besiege him, it would still be very difficult to defeat him. This azure gown girl could be counted as beauty, and that was why those boys always followed her plan. Everyone wanted to look prestigious in front of her, not to mention the fact that they heard that Chen Xiang was seriously injured. Without any delay they drew their weapons and walked towards Chen Xiang. Obviously, they could also see Chen Xiang walking towards them. Amidst the crowd, those with keen perceptions could see the beast martial sect disciples taking out their weapons, and with a terrifyingly imposing manner, rushing towards Chen Xiang. These people were not able to go treasure hunting and thus they were very depressed, so when they saw such a good show playing out in front of them, they immediately shouted. Moreover, it was also a conflict between beast martial sect disciples and another person. That brat truly does not want to live. It would be troublesome to confront the beast martial sect disciples head-on. Besides, those are the inner sect disciples, so let's see how this brat dies, one person said. Not necessarily, look at that brat's posture. He is not an ordinary person. While the 10 beast martial sect disciples are rushing towards him, he is not fazed by it and is calmly walking towards them too, another person said. The 10 beast martial sect disciples were not willing to fall far behind their fellow apprentices. Amidst them one powerful young man ran even more fiercely, and holding a long sword, rushed towards Chen Xiang. Chen Xiang suddenly saw through the strength of these beast martial sect disciples. Though they were from the inner sect, but they were far worse when compared with the inner sect disciples of the extreme martial sect. However, they were still 10th level mortal martial realm martial artists, thus each of their actions were too quick. When the sword stabbed towards him, its speed was too quick and was difficult to react to, but to everyone's surprise Chen Xiang ducked. In the blink of an eye, like lightning, the penetrating long sword arrived in front of Chen Xiang, and in turn Chen Xiang fiercely jumped up, jumping above that young man's head, only to see Chen Xiang's palm, which was overflowing with a slight azure true qi, pressing against that young man's head. This kind of speed was even faster than that young man's sword. Watching the next scene, they could not help but felt their stomach churn as Chen Xiang's arm pressed against the head of that young man, fiercely pressing down, and was similar to the dough being pressed to make a chapati. That 8 feet tall young man turned into a pie due to the pressure. Everyone saw on the ground that a bloody meat pie formed out of flesh, clothes, and hairs all mixed together. Everyone could not help but feel like vomiting, and they were even more shocked that with just pressure, he obliterated a 10th level mortal martial realm martial artist. Was he a true martial realm martial artist? Everyone was thinking as such in their hearts. Those beast martial sect disciples originally rushing towards Chen Xiang, also immediately stopped in their place, and they were even shuddering. They were close enough to see their own senior brother being pressed into a meat pie, and this kind of strength was extremely similar to the true martial realm's strength. At this time Chen Xiang was staring at the azure gown girl, and that azure gown girl also had a look of shock and fear. She was perfectly clear of the strength of that young man who was made into meat patty a moment ago, and compared to her he was even more formidable. However, he was the same as an ant in front of Chen Xiang. During the few seconds that the azure gown girl was dazed, Chen Xiang flew out like the wind and in the blink of an eye arrived in front of that azure gown girl. You, senior brother. Save! The azure gown girl reacted and emitted a shriek, only have spoken these words before an azure chi aura enveloped her. Chen Xiang blasted a palm, and a strong and fearsome wood true chi was directly released out, transforming into a chi aura, hitting that azure gown girl. Similar to countless razors all cutting at the same time, in the blink of an eye, culled that azure gown girl into a pile of minced meat. Even if one had stunning and alluring looks, in front of extremely strong power, it was similar to being an ant. The atmosphere around everyone was as if they did not dare to breathe as they were worried about offending this one fiend, who with just a casual move, killed a martial artist at the 10th level of the mortal martial realm. Furthermore, after killing a person, he did not even glance at her, as if he had just crushed an ant and did not care about it at all. Of course, the frigid, dark, cold slaughter chi from Chen Xiang's body made everyone feel inexplicable fear. Chen Xiang just looked like a 17 to 18-year-old teen, but no one had heard of such a character with such a fearsome strength and an attitude that kills so decisively. You want to take revenge for her? Chen Xiang stared at those beast martial sect disciples, making them scared and speechless, because Chen Xiang in their eyes was a true martial realm martial artist, who was also so cruel. Those beast martial sect disciples quickly shook their heads, and Chen Xiang already made them so scared that they were trembling. After all, no one wanted to die. I'll ask you one question, answer me honestly, or you will end up just like them. Chen Xiang glanced over that meat pie, which was not that far from the minced meat. The beast martial sect disciples hurriedly nodded their heads. Have you ever grabbed extreme martial province civilians to feed your demon beasts? Chen Xiang asked, and his voice was very loud, allowing the martial artists gathered here to hear. The majority of the martial artists here were from the extreme martial province, and when they heard the question they could not help but shudder. Especially the martial artists who lived all year round in Guanlong City, as they had often heard information about people disappearing. At this time the crowd was already discussing with each other. Using civilians to feed the demon beasts. This issue would create a horrifying public outrage, and to quell it everyone must be executed. The beast martial sect disciples, after hearing the noisy arguments, were sweating profusely. At this time they also couldn't answer yes, nor they could answer no. They also did not dare to lie, because in front of the monstrous and murderous Chen Xiang, who was using his terrifying eyes to stare at them, it gave them a great burden on their heart. I'll only count to 2, 1. Chen Xiang only counted this number, and the beast martial sect disciples nodded their heads, but just as they nodded their heads, both of Chen Xiang's fists shook, while a white mist gushed out from them. Endless slaughter chi accompanied by a deadly death chi gushed out, and this kind of terrifying slaughter chi made people feel as if they were in a battlefield littered with corpses. Go die! Chen Xiang punched out both his fists, and countless white giant tigers carrying endless amounts of slaughter chi lashed out, madly and viciously biting those 9 beast martial sect disciples. Just in the blink of an eye, those beast martial sect disciples disappeared and vanished, leaving only a few demon beasts and those people with a lingering fear of slaughter chi. After casting out white tiger divine fists, Chen Xiang leapt up and treaded on the air, casted Qing Gong, passed over everyone's head, and entered that canyon inside. Seeing Chen Xiang entering the canyon, everyone in their hearts were even more sure that Chen Xiang was a true martial realm expert, and seeing true martial realm martial artists coming out and fighting, it made them all excited. At the same time they also understood why Chen Xiang had acted, because beast martial sect disciples had caught civilians and fed them to their demon beasts. Amidst these martial artists, most of them felt very angry, and this time the beast martial sect gave them a very bad impression. Chen Xiang closed on that fiery red light ball, but did not sense any power and instead felt very warm, which made him somewhat inconceivable. Chen Xiang very easily went through that light ball, and after walking 10 steps inside the fiery red passage, he saw a flat wasteland. Inside the wasteland there was a stone monument that was as tall as a human. A few tens of jong away from the stone monument, there was a giant red flower as tall as half of a human, which was as big as a face and looked very bewitching. Next to that red flower, around 10 or so people had surrounded it, and their palms were stuck against each other's. Their entire face was serious, and some even had blood overflowing from the corner of their mouths. These true martial realm martial artists' palms were against each other and they were using their true chi to contend, and it could be seen that they were disputing over that giant red flower. Not long after Chen Xiang came in, he heard one ice-cold and surprised voice. "How did you get in?" Followed by this sound, he looked towards that stone monument only to see a black-robed woman crawling out from behind it, and it was the very same woman who had previously almost killed him. At this time Chen Xiang also saw next to that huge red flower there was a headless dead snake. This black-robed woman was injured, moreover she was seriously injured. Chen Xiang, in his heart, was secretly pleased, and at the same time he walked towards that black-robed woman. When the black-robed woman saw Chen Xiang with a look of resentment, in her heart she could not help but feel shocked as she did not understand how Chen Xiang was able to recover from his injuries so soon, and also able to enter the mysterious realm where only martial artists in the true martial realm could come. The black-robed woman quickly ran next to the 12 true martial realm martial artists far away, and among these people there were also beast martial sect's true martial realm martial artists. As she was injured she was worried that she might not be Chen Xiang's opponent. "Senior brother, this is the guy who killed Qing Er's little black." The black-robed woman had a vicious look as she looked at Chen Xiang. "We absolutely cannot allow this brat to live, he also knows about the feeding matter." One bald middle-aged man looked at Chen Xiang, ruthlessly smiled, and then nodded his head. After Chen Xiang saw the black-robed woman leaving, he didn't follow her but came next to the stone monument, because he felt that this stone monument was exuding a particular atmosphere which was very familiar to him. "Does the heavenly dragon treasure have just that flower? It should not be like this," Chen Xiang muttered, and one of his hands pressed on that stone monument. At this time those true martial realm martial artists, whose palms were right against each other, all looked at Chen Xiang. They were contending their true chi and everyone refused to admit defeat, otherwise they would not be able to get this huge red flower, because it was a very precious and rare spirit herb. After Chen Xiang touched the stone monument, the azure dragon true chi madly gushed out from his body, penetrating that stone monument, and in only the blink of an eye, that stone monument burst out with an azure light, making those true martial realm martial artists very shocked. Just a moment ago they too had touched the stone monument but it did not cause such a scene. After the azure light disappeared, the rocks in the outer surface of the stone monument fell off, and to everyone's surprise they only saw a transparent square box, but inside that transparent box there was a 5-foot-long pitch-black broadsword. This broadsword looked very filthy, but after Chen Xiang saw a lifelike small dragon carved on the blade hilt, he knew this blade was unusual. Azure Dragon Slaughtering Devil Blade. It's the Azure Dragon Divine Weapon, part of the 4 Beasts Divine Weapons. Su Meiyao shouted due to surprise. After Chen Xiang heard this, in his heart he was also shocked. A palm blasted open that transparent box, and he grabbed that blade hilt. This blade was very heavy, and Chen Xiang had not expected this, which made the broadsword fall from his hand, inserting it into the ground. Azure Dragon Slaughtering Devil Blade. Its weight is inexhaustible, and according to owner's strength it will have a certain weight. Only you will be able to bring forth its strength, and only you can control this blade, Su Meiyao said. Chen Xiang in the next moment estimated that this Azure Dragon Slaughtering Devil Blade should now weigh a few 10,000 jin. Such a little thing actually had this kind of weight, it was truly incredible, and was indeed a divine weapon. This made him very excited, and now he did not need to look for a spirit weapon as he had the Azure Dragon Slaughtering Devil Blade, which was enough to allow him to roam freely in the world of martial arts. The transparent box not only had Azure Dragon Slaughtering Devil Blade, but also had a yellow beast skin in a small box. On the beast skin there was a martial skill, furthermore it was another, Dragon Slaying Divine Martial Skill. The Dragon Slayer 7 Killing Cut. Inside the small box there was a fiery red Dan, and it appeared to be a very extraordinary spirit Dan. Afterward Chen Xiang became aware of the fiery gazes coming from those people far away, and it was as if he was a naked girl being watched by a group of men. Chen Xiang quickly put all the things inside his ring, and let Su Meiyao and Bai Yu manage it. "Brat, those things are not for you to take, and if you know what is good for you quickly take it out," that bald middle-aged man shouted, and he was the senior brother of that black-robed woman. Chen Xiang smirked and said, "Why can I not take them? I found it. Moreover there is no provision that only you can seek treasure inside the Heavenly Dragon treasure house." The black-robed woman's eyebrow twitched. She took out a long sword, and slowly walked towards Chen Xiang. She once had injured Chen Xiang and knew Chen Xiang's strength, so she just didn't understand why Chen Xiang could come here, but she absolutely would not believe that Chen Xiang had the strength of the true martial realm. Otherwise she would not have defeated him and made him flee. She also believed Chen Xiang was now seriously injured. If she killed Chen Xiang, all those things would be hers. That was why even if she was injured, she also dared to go. "Ha ha, here all the treasure belongs to our beast martial sect. One middle-aged man madly laughed, and it seems there were a lot of beast martial sects true martial realm martial artists. At this time they were thwarting other sects true martial realm martial artists, allowing the black-robed woman to behead Chen Xiang. Seeing the black-robed woman having pale face and a weak chi aura within her body, Chen Xiang in his heart secretly had a good laugh. He was waiting for the middle-aged woman to come closer to him, and a sliver of sinister smile flashed on Chen Xiang's mouth. I'll tell you one thing. Before coming here, I killed your apprentice, now I'll send you to see her. While speaking, in Chen Xiang's hand suddenly appeared a broadsword. This broadsword was the Azure Dragon Slaughtering Devil Blade, but it was no longer pitch black and instead was a very beautiful broadsword. At this moment the Azure Dragon Slaughtering Devil Blade was as if it was carved from a beautiful azure jade, and above the blade there were colorful spirit veins. These spirit veins were as if a group of dragons were clawing or roaring, and was full of a forbidding aura. The sharp blade edge was glittering with a cold light which made it even more frightening, and was as if it was able to cut off everything in the world. The lifelike dragon head on the blade hilt was even more daunting, and if you weren't blind, one could see that this blade was a peerless divine weapon. Chen Xiang holding this blade, and having this kind of blade in his hand, felt as if he was invincible in the world. As he poured Azure Dragon True Chi into the blade, it transformed as such, and this was also what Su Meiyao had told him. After this blade absorbed True Dragon True Chi, it excited the spirit veins, allowing the one armed with this blade to have even more powerful strength, and the true chi released through this blade would be increased many times over in quantity. At this time Chen Xiang felt the threatening atmosphere released by Azure Dragon Slaughtering Devil Blade, and even he himself could not help but deeply fear it. Junior sister. That bald middle-aged man thunderously roared, and that black-robed woman also felt the danger. She quickly released all the remaining true chi inside her body and formed one true chi shield. Chen Xiang slashed the blade swiftly and with hatred, drawing one round azure arc-like afterimage, and chopped towards the waist of that black-robed woman. The Azure Dragon Slaughtering Devil Blade swept away all obstacles, disregarded that true chi shield and directly passed through it. The black-robed woman was like a thin sapling, and she was cut down from her waist by that blade. Blood was overflowing from her, but she did not die and was instead struggling on the ground. Her cries were full of fear, and that azure white face of hers was distorted due to pain. Go see your apprentice, Chen Xiang sneered, gathered a rich amount of universal true chi, and smacked a palm downwards. The invisible universal true chi transformed into a giant palm, and struck the body of the black-robed woman, who was made into a meat patty. I want to fight it out with you, that bald middle-aged man secretly roared, and both of his eyes were very red, but he was incapable of stopping the palm, otherwise, he would also have been hurt. Other true martial realm martial artists seeing Chen Xiang having such a strength, could not help but be shocked. Chen Xiang gave them a sneer and slowly walked towards them, and his every step was very heavy. After all, the Azure Dragon Slaughtering Devil Blade that was in his hand and shrouded in a belligerent atmosphere, weighed about 50,000 jin. As Chen Xiang walked towards the 12 men, they could not help but panic. Just a moment ago they had witnessed the resolute killing attitude of Chen Xiang. Even while facing a woman he was able to attack with so much hatred, then what would happen to them? All of them were people who had reached the true martial realm. It was definitely not easy for them to arrive at this level, and they obviously wouldn't want to die. Chen Xiang took only 2 steps before the 12 people separated as if they had a prior agreement. Seeing this, Chen Xiang immediately drew the Azure Dragon Slaughtering Devil Blade, and in the blink of an eye a pair of vermilion birdfire wings appeared behind his back. He instantly flew high into the sky, but just after he left, the previous place he was standing was attacked by several waves of powerful chi. If he had just been half a step slower, he himself might have been reduced to a meat patty. That was the power when several true martial realm cultivators joined hands to take action. Chen Xiang directly flew out of the mysterious realm. He knew that he had already obtained the most valuable possession, and was very satisfied with it. Furthermore, he had also managed to kill that black-robed woman, so his great hatred was now satisfied and his debt had been repaid. Watching Chen Xiang flutter with those massive wings and fly into the distance, all the true martial realm martial artists were dumbfounded. Even they didn't have such a martial skill. Their faces were filled with envy and they yearned to steal it and claim it as their own. Your beast martial sect has become enemies with an extraordinary little devil. If this brat doesn't die soon, it'll certainly become very troublesome for you later on, gloated an old man. A bald middle-aged man along with several other similarly aged men were furious, but they could only harbor anger in their hearts. Even if they were to expend all their power and put in all their effort, they were unable to catch up with the flying Chen Xiang. While flying away from the mysterious realm, Chen Xiang was brimming with happiness. He had never expected to get such a giant harvest and obtain the legendary Azure Dragon Slaughtering Devil Blade. This Azure Dragon Slaughtering Devil Blade voluntarily recognized you as its owner, however, it's just missing a very important component, and without that it cannot be called a divine weapon, Su Meiyao sighed in regret. What's missing? Chen Xiang knew the powerful strength of the Azure Dragon slaughtering devil blade and its ability to become heavier matching his own strength. Imagine a case where the heavy blade is slashed downwards during a fight coupled with the powerful true qi coursing through it. The power would be unimaginable. It's missing the dragon's soul. All the 4 beats divine weapons are half finished, and none of them contain genuine souls, which is why they cannot be considered divine weapons. Su Meiyao sighed. I just learned of this matter today after I came into contact with the Azure Dragon slaughtering devil blade. So what if it's missing the dragon's soul? Chen Xiang asked. He thought that the Azure Dragon slaughtering devil blade was still immensely powerful. When he had used it previously, he felt very happy. Wielding that sort of power made him feel as if he had the ability to look down upon the entire world. You don't know. You might not be able to see it now, because currently you're only able to use a tiny portion of this blade's power, which is why it currently makes no difference to you, Su Meiyao said. The Azure Dragon slaughtering devil blade is tremendously lethal to anyone from the devil's domain. I only cultivate devil skills, yet when I touched it a moment ago I felt extremely uncomfortable. This time it was Bao Yuoyu who spoke. Devil's domain? What's that? It was the first time Chen Xiang had heard of such a thing. Su Meiyao did not respond and Bai Yuyu didn't say anything. After Chen Xiang waited for a while, the only thing Su Meiyao said was, above the mortal world there is the immortal domain, devil domain and demon domain, known as the 3 great heavenly realms. Compared to the mortal world, they are a higher rank of existence, a different realm. These 3 vastly different domains are almost independent and completely separated, but they share a common meeting point. Every now and then, the intersection between them will open and all of the people from these 3 domains will gather and kill each other. Chen Xiang frowned and asked, so, does that make the immortal devil cliff the intersecting space? This intersection point can move. However, once it is opened, humans, devils, and demons alike within the heavenly realms, and even the mortal world can all meet with one another. Su Meiyao declared in a dignified tone. If it was in the past, Chen Xiang would have just laughed it off after hearing such a statement. First off, he would never have believed such a thing, but even if he had believed it, he was just a little character and would be unaffected by it. But now things were different. He had the yin-yang divine vein along with some divine exercises, including a high talent in alchemy. The 3 great heavenly realms above the mortal world will fight with each other. Many lower rank worlds below them will also appear at the intersection and fight as well. However, the demons, devils and immortals within the heavenly realms will not descend onto the mortal world, otherwise it would have been destroyed long ago. Su Meiyao said. This statement caused Chen Xiang to worry a lot. Well, at least this will happen in the far-off future and I don't need to worry about it happening soon. Chen Xiang pursed his lips and said. No, you will have to worry about it. The last time the 3 domains intersected was 100,000 years ago. Every time the intersection shows itself, around 100,000 years will have passed. I think it's almost about time for the next one, Bai Yu said. Chen Xiang became dispirited. Why had such a matter appeared before him? At that time, numerous worlds will encounter great calamity. In order to quickly return to the extreme martial sect, Chen Xiang did not stop flying for 5 days straight. Regarding the great war between the 3 domains, he did not brood over it. If it was bound to happen, then it would happen. There was nothing he could do about it now except to elevate his own strength. On the way, Chen Xiang learned from Su Meiyao about the background of that huge red flower inside the heavenly dragon treasure mysterious realm. It turned out that the flower was a high-grade profound level tyrant emperor blazing flower. If one were to refine it into a dan and swallow it, fire-attributed martial artists and even the alchemists would earn endless benefits. It was a very rare and precious spirit herb requiring thousands of years to grow. After returning to Tianmen City, Chen Xiang found it to be a lot more lively. The streets were full of people and the extreme martial sect had become even more crowded. Sounds emitted, while the disciples were practicing their respective martial skills, could be heard coming one after another from many of the martial courtyards. It was an extremely lively atmosphere. The extreme martial sect was expanding. After its fusion with the peerless martial sect, the extreme martial sect became even more powerful. Moreover, the matter about a mysterious realm existing inside the sect had already been spread out, making the extreme martial sect seem even more powerful in the minds of all the martial artists in the Chenwu mainland. Walking on the road of the extreme martial sect, Chen Xiang saw a lot of beautiful young female disciples. These were the peerless martial sect's disciples, and although they fused with the extreme martial sect, all of them seemed to be happier than before. The peerless martial sect had around 100,000 disciples. Inside the extreme martial province there were billions of people. It was impossible for a girl to enter the extreme martial sect, so most of them choose to enter the peerless martial sect, resulting in the large amount of female disciples. This was a godsend for the extreme martial sect's male disciples. What made Chen Xiang speechless was that, in a span of 10 short days after the peerless martial sect fused with the extreme martial sect, There were already people voting and establishing something along the lines of top 10 beauties, top 10 handsome males and top 10 great geniuses. When Chen Xiang arrived at the General Affairs courtyard, he saw a few such sheets posted outside. Sweeping through the list, he did not find his name anywhere. What the fuck, I'm actually not on any of the lists. The General Affairs courtyard was a specially designed place by the sect where missions were distributed and reported back to in order to receive their respective rewards. It was managed by a few old men. However, Chen Xiang saw one amiable bald old man in here. Elder Wu, this is the details from my investigation of the Heavenly Dragon treasure. Chen Xiang didn't go to see those old men and instead directly handed the sheet to Wu Keiming. Chen Xiang and Wu Keiming had always been very familiar with each other and never needed a polite greeting from the one another. Chen Xiang returned extremely quickly, even a few days quicker compared to those messaging eagles. This was why the Heavenly Dragon treasure mysterious realm matter had not yet spread out here. Otherwise this area would have been incomparably noisy. Wu Keiming took the sheet and opened it. He could not help but frown. Is there really a mysterious realm? Of course, I also entered to take a look, said Chen Xiang. He not only went in and took a look, but he also obtained good things, and also killed one person, his enemy. Oh, what did you get? Wu Keiming asked. It was not within the scope of the task, so it seems I don't have to explain it. Chen Xiang, while scratching his head, smilingly said. He knew he could not conceal the matter, but he also could not speak aloud too. This is the reward, take it. Wu Keiming gave Chen Xiang 3 true qi dans, and this made Chen Xiang to secretly despise them. He went so far away to complete the task, and actually only received 3 beans. In the eyes of Chen Xiang, they really were just beans, but in the eyes of the outer sect disciples, they were very precious dans. Chen Xiang took it and directly tossed it into the air, then caught it using his mouth. Those 3 true qi dans accurately entered in his mouth, and it was as if he was one of those regular peanut eaters playfully eating peanuts. Seeing all this, Wu Keiming's mouth twitched. Those 3 true qi dans were for the 3 of you. How can you eat them all? Wu Keiming scoffingly said. Chen Xiang left the General Affairs courtyard. Those 3 true qi dans were not even enough to fill the gaps between his teeth. Besides, he himself alone finished the mission, so there was no need to divide it between those 2 rich kids with overflowing wealth. Returning to the martial courtyard, little Fatty hastily rushed out with a smile across his face, and said, Younger brother Chen, didn't I speak to you about me having a sister before? She used to be a peerless martial sect disciple. Now that the peerless martial sect and the extreme martial sect have been fused, subsequently it will be much easier for you to meet her. Zhu Lao, didn't I also say, I've shui Chen Xiang. I do not want others. How come I don't see Xiao Dao with you? Chen Xiang said. Little rascal Yun. That guy is now in trouble. 2 days before he was swimming in the female disciples' martial courtyard, but now he does not even dare to look at the women. Ha ha. Zhu Rong said while laughing. Do you know why this brat was called back by the Yun family? Last time when Chen Xiang saw Yun Xiaodao's teacher ordering him to go back, and although Chen Zhang's complexion became somewhat serious, but he was also secretly curious. What is the reason? Chen Xiang knew that for Yun Xiaodao it was definitely not a good thing, otherwise Zhu Rong would not be gloating and laughing so happily. As it is said that misfortune never comes single-handedly, and it's same for that brat too. He was called back to the Yun family because the Yun family wanted to arrange a fiancé for him, and she is one very annoying woman. Afterwards, 2 days before when he went to the female disciples' martial courtyard to play, he just happened to bump into his fiancé, and on the spot he was violently beaten black and blue. His woman is very flagitious, so later on if you meet her, you have to be a little careful, Zhu Rong said gloatingly while laughing. Hey, in the future that brat should be able to manage his thing in his pants better. Chen Xiang also smiled lightly and said. Right, why is there only us in our martial courtyard? Chen Xiang returned and saw that the martial courtyard still remained the same, and did not have any other people. This martial courtyard was at the bottom of inter-sects martial courtyards, and when the peerless martial sect disciples first came, all the powerful disciples had challenged other inter-sects martial courtyards disciples. After obtaining those disciples' recognition, they were able to enter their martial courtyard. Our martial courtyard only has us 3, and every day not even a trace of little rascal Yun is to be seen. You were also outside on a mission, and I, this fatty, was also looked down by others. That's why we have been directly ignored by others, and no one bothered to enter this inter-sect's worst martial courtyard, Zhu Rong helplessly said. Chen Xiang touched his chin, and a mysterious smile was on his face. Zhu Lao, I've now entered the 10th level of the mortal martial realm, and whenever that Yun Xiaodao decides to come back, we'll discuss what to do later. Zhu Rong was surprised for a moment, and that pair of squinted eyes fiercely widened. Chen Xiang, in the span of 10 or so days, had actually entered the 10th level of the mortal martial realm. When he was in the 9th level of the mortal martial realm he was already heaven-defying, so what would he be like now? Zhu Lao, how are the handsome disciples in the most handsome list selected? Although Chen Xiang was not interested, but he was a little unhappy, because of how the list said that it was from an unanimous opinion. At this time Yan Xiaodao's jealous voice was heard, all the sluts voted on their own. What shit handsome disciples. They look more like chicks, and if I get the opportunity I'll certainly beat them till they are more uglier than Zhu Lao. Little bastard, you actually called me ugly? Father had a blissful appearance, and whoever saw me said I'm a little cutie. I can be considered to have the correct facial features, so where am I ugly? Zhu Rong suddenly retorted. Cute. Ha ha, this dead pig actually says he is cute, or else do I, your father, have to piss on you to illuminate your bare appearance? You better fucking not mention this joke to others, or they will laugh themselves to death. Yan Xiaodao was madly laughing while holding his stomach. Chen Xiang also couldn't contain his laughter, and at last he also burst into laughter. You are envious of my blissful appearance. Zhu Rong's fat face was very red due to anger. Yan Xiaodao spat on the ground, and then said with a smile to Chen Xiang, Elder brother Chen, I'll take you to take a look at my sisters. They are all peerless martial sect disciples, and if you're pleased, hey hey. Chen Xiang, you should never go. These women's eyes are on top of their head. Furthermore they look even more repugnant than the squinty-eyed guy, Zhu Rong hastily said. TLN. Eyes on top their head, look at everyone as if they are beneath them. Xiaodao, I just came back, and I'm a little tired. I would like to rest first. The instant Chen Xiang finished speaking he ran away, making Yan Xiaodao very helpless, but he also did not have confidence in his own proud and arrogant sisters. Little rascal Yan, you're also being avoided. Although you have one sister who can be ranked in the top 10 beautiful list, but Chen Zhang's fiancé is Shui Shenxian. Your sisters who have their eyes on top of their head are simply not comparable with the other party. Zhu Rong contemptuously laughed and said. Yan Xiaodao snorted, and then left the martial courtyard. Although they belonged to this courtyard, they had their own places where they lived. They gathered only at the martial art stage in the martial courtyard to discuss or meet. For example, Chen Xiang had now returned to the Extreme Dan King courtyard. The Extreme Dan King courtyard's gate was closed, but just after inserting a jade card in a hole it could be opened, and from one glance one knew that there was a bizarre array that had been arranged here. After entering the Extreme Dan King courtyard, Chen Xiang slightly sucked a deep breath. It was inexplicably deserted here, and not a single soul was here in this tremendously large area. After entering a building, the inside was decorated and it was very refined and elegant, with a light fragrance which made people feel very comfortable. Living in here one truly did not need to worry about being disturbed, as ordinary people could not enter the mysterious realm. Not to mention that no one dared to create chaos in the Elder Dan's Extreme Dan King courtyard. In here Chen Xiang picked one practicing room, then took out the beast skin and observed it. This was what he obtained with the Azure Dragon Slaughtering Devil Blade. Dragon Slayer 7 Killing Cut. There are 7 moves, and you can use a weapon to cast it, but you can also use the hand as a knife to cast it. These 7 moves each have different characteristics and they all have different powers which can adapt under different kinds of battle situations, but it needs a large amount of true qi. The 10th level of the mortal martial realm cannot afford to consume that much true qi, and one needs to be truly in the true martial realm to cast them out. Sei Meiyao said. She and Bai Yuyu in the past few days had been studying this dragon martial technique. This, Dragon Slayer 7 Killing Cut, is a dragon-slaying divine martial skill, and can only be used coordinating with your dragon aura. Now your utilization of dragon aura has already reached a high degree of proficiency, and as long as you can reach the true martial realm, you will be able to use the powerful Dragon Slayer 7 Killing Cut, Bai Yuyu said. Chen Xiang was a little disappointed, because to enter the true martial realm he also needed a very long time, and he could not use this powerful dragon martial technique. This made his heart itch. It was as if a treasure was placed in front of him, but he couldn't take it. What is this red Dan? Chen Xiang was very curious about this spirit Dan. As it was placed together with the Azure Dragon Slaughtering Devil Blade, it was certainly not an ordinary Dan. Su Meiyao mentioning this Dan appeared to be very excited. This should be a dragon blood Dan, which is refined out from a dragon's blood essence. After you eat it, this Dan will melt into dragon blood which in turn will surge into your body, making all of your meridians, skeleton, and muscles as powerful as a dragon. I think after you eat it you should be able to enter the threshold of the immortal devil body. This chapter was sponsored by Sebastian. Thanks for your support, smiley face. Chen Xiang sucked in a mouthful of cold air. He was extremely excited. What rank is this Dan? It's very difficult to set a definite value. To put it simply, it is an extremely rare Dan. You must know it is refined out of dragon blood, and so how can it be so easy to obtain? Su Meiyao said, this is also the first time I've ever encountered something like this. Regarding the heavenly dragon treasure mystery, Chen Xiang and the sisters discussed long and hard about it. Who forged the Azure Dragon Slaughtering Devil Blade? According to legend, the Dragon Slaying 7 Killing Cut was part of the Dragon Slaying Divine Martial Skill. and was created by a dragon. Of course, the dragon blood Dan as well could only be created by coordinating with a dragon. There's no need to think too much about it. Take it first and then we can talk after, Su Meiyao urged. When Chen Xiang held the dragon blood Dan in his hand, he felt an inexplicable burning sensation coming from it, making him somewhat fearful. His instincts told him that if he swallowed this Dan, it would certainly bring him quite a lot of pain. Chen Xiang undressed himself, and in one gulp, swallowed the dragon blood Dan. When it entered his throat, a heat was suddenly released as the dragon blood Dan melted in the blink of an eye, making Chen Xiang feel like he had just swallowed pure lava. The dragon blood Dan that had been transformed into liquid entered his stomach, which soon emitted a loud explosive sound, like a volcano that had just erupted. In that moment, endless stabbing pain surged throughout his four limbs and numerous bones, sending Chen Xiang's entire body into an intense spasm as he let out a horrible heartbreaking shriek. In just a few seconds, Chen Xiang's whole body was covered in dark blood. He looked extremely filthy, his muscles were inflated too and the bones in his body felt like they were being burned in a furnace. In addition to all of this, his meridians bulged out like they were about to explode. Its effects are too astonishing. Hold on, Su Meiyao shouted in surprise. Don't die. Bai Yuyu was also taken aback. Although she said it in her usual cold tone, her voice was full of concern. This process lasted longer than 3 hours. Chen Xiang felt that everything in his body was being refined in a furnace over and over again, as impurities within the blood got discharged from his pores and a foul stench was emitted from it. Yes, he's finally entered the first level of the immortal devil body, Su Meiyao exclaimed with a charming smile. As long as he passes this threshold, it will be much easier for him in the future. At this time, Chen Xiang was very dirty. He hastily stimulated the true qi within his body and transformed it into clean water, washing off the sludge off his body. First level? How many levels are there in total? How far have I reached? Chen Xiang while washing his body said with a mischievous laugh. Sister Meiyao, come and help others to wash. Just a moment ago I was almost dead. Little rascal, nice try. If it was another place I might have thought about it, but here it is the extreme martial sect, and there are too many powerful guys. I'm worried about getting exposed, said Su Meiyao, in her charming voice with a shallow laughter. Humph, one grown man needs the help of others to bathe, that's really outrageous. Bai Yuyu coldly snorted and said, the immortal devil body, in total has the 9th of September 81 levels, and under the first level of the immortal devil body, you can possess the kind of power that can help you elevate your strength by 30%. Even if you're now only using physical strength, it is not difficult for you to beat an ordinary 10th level mortal martial realm experts. TLN. 9 levels with 9 sub-levels. A total of 81 levels. So to say, most of the martial artists only cultivate their true qi, and will only now and then exercise their body. So under ordinary circumstances, all of their true qi is far stronger than their body, but now your body is able to reach the same level as your true qi. Both inside and outside is very uniform, which allows you to have one very solid foundation, Su Meiyao slowly said. The person at the peak of the mortal martial world had only at most reached the 20th level of the immortal devil body. And you now are only at first level. How high do you think your starting point is? Bai Yuyu said, and she was very satisfied regarding this level of Chen Xiang's foundation. At least Chen Xiang had not disgraced the extreme yin divine vein given by her. Chen Xiang took a deep breath, looked at his own palms, and at this time he could clearly feel the strength inside his body. Two sisters, how many levels have you reached in the immortal devil body? Chen Xiang curiously asked. Not going to tell you. Su Meiyao mischievously smiled, and obviously she intended to hide it from Chen Xiang. Chen Xiang could obviously see this point, and he knew the origins of these two stunning girls were certainly more formidable than he had imagined. The originally 3,000 martial courtyards of the extreme martial sects had already been increased to 5,000, and with that the inner sect's martial courtyard had also been increased from 329 to 500, and only the 15 true disciple courtyards remained the same. It was because it still didn't have enough people to increase their count, and even if the peerless martial sect had been incorporated, martial artists of the true martial realm were not a lot, and that was why there was no increase. Thus it could be seen how meager the number of true martial realm martial artists were, and according to Chen Xiang's estimate there were only 200 true disciples in the extreme martial sect. Practicing the immortal devil body to the first level, this meant that Chen Xiang's strength had also been elevated by a lot, and at this time he also wanted to advance a little forward in the martial courtyards. 500. They changed the number so quickly. Chen Xiang in front of the entrance of the martial courtyard was somewhat speechless, as this meant that they were even more farther behind. Yan Xiaodao and Zhu Rong both were here, and they knew Chen Xiang had entered the 10th level of the mortal martial realm. It was time to advance a little forward in the martial courtyards to look a little more imposing. Seeing Chen Xiang refreshingly coming, Yan Xiaodao, like an arrow shooting towards the sky, leapt up, gathered the fire and lightning true chi on his fists and punched, and a scorching heat and thunderbolts burst out at the same time, one after another violently exploding, which fiercely struck towards Chen Xiang. Chen Xiang immediately extended his palm, and with one hand grabbed Yan Xiaodao's fist perfusing with violent true chi, and in that moment, the fist produced a powerful explosion. However, Chen Xiang was the same as before and was still closely grabbing Yan Xiaodao's fist, powerfully standing there with a relaxed expression. At this time Yan Xiaodao only felt his own fist deeply embedded in there, and simply could not move. He was shocked. Just a moment ago Chen Xiang actually didn't even use a tiny bit of his true chi and simply received his fists. Although he himself didn't use much of his own true chi, but Chen Xiang's easygoing look was as if this fist of his were the same as those of a brat. Elder brother Chen, you? Yan Xiaodao looking shocked said, is this only physical strength? Almost, to temper this body, I suffered no small hardships. Chen Xiang loosened Yan Xiaodao's fist, and slightly smiled. Although he mentioned it casually, but in the hearts of both Yan Xiaodao and Zhu Rong those words were the same as mighty waves in an ocean. Yan Xiaodao was relatively thin, while Zhu Rong was quite fat, and from one glance one could see that both of them hadn't tempered their body at all. It was because they knew that if they wanted to strengthen their body, they certainly needed to suffer various kinds of hardships, and they may not be capable of enduring that kind of hard work. Today Chen Xiang with his body alone could release such power. It could be seen that Chen Xiang had spent a large amount of effort to temper his body, which was absolutely something no ordinary person could withstand. I'll now go and pick one martial courtyard, Chen Xiang said with a faint smile. Yan Xiaodao emotionally sucked in a deep breath, elder brother Chen, with our current strength should we not be able to challenge a martial courtyard? If they wanted to move up the ranking of the martial courtyards, they had to challenge a higher ranking courtyard, and this was not a personal challenge but one martial courtyard challenging another martial courtyard in a battle. The more the ranking of a martial courtyard could move forward, the more benefits they could get. Of course, the sex-arranged missions would also be very important and all of them were definitely going to be dangerous. To challenge other martial courtyards, one must take out an attractive ante, otherwise the other party would not accept the challenge. This challenge was just similar to a gamble. Yan Xiaodao rubbed his chin, and looked at Zhu Rong. Lao Zhu, according to you, which inner martial courtyard do you think is good for us to challenge? Although Zhu Rong was an extreme martial sect disciple, but he could be considered as a businessman, Yan Xiaodao was sure that he must know which martial courtyard was relatively easy to challenge. Zhu Rong slightly smiled. Now do you know my usefulness? Hey, from a long time ago I was waiting for this day. Now that I analyze the strength of the three of us, to win against the 400th martial courtyard will not be difficult, and we can even move a little forward, such as the 350th martial courtyard. Yan Xiaodao frowned a little, and said, that is too far behind. What do you all think about the 200th martial courtyard? If the extreme martial sect had not fused with the peerless martial sect, they now would have been ranked 329th. Zhu Rong looked at Chen Xiang and said, Chen Xiang, we should now move up steadily step by step, because if we lose in a martial courtyard challenge, we lose big time. I'll pay for whatever ante we take out for the challenge, so it's okay. Let's go and challenge the 200th martial courtyard. Yan Xiaodao patted his chest, as if he didn't care. Chen Xiang suddenly smiled and said, regarding the ante leave it to me, and just the 200th martial courtyard. Xiaodao you still look down upon me, how about 16th? What, elder brother Chen, don't joke, Yan Xiaodao shaking his hand said. Zhu Rong also thought he was joking. Chen Xiang, the 16th martial courtyard is the first-ranked inner courtyard, and the inner sect disciples inside of it are strongest. Besides, there are also 10 of them. Chen Xiang faintly smiled. 10. Seems to be more than what I normally imagined. If I use 5 metal spirit fruit for the bet, do you think they will accept the challenge? At this time, Yan Xiaodao and Zhu Rong realized that Chen Xiang was very unlikely telling a joke. When Chen Xiang was in 9th level of the mortal martial realm, his strength was comparable with people in the 10th level of the mortal martial realm, and that was equivalent to the first-ranked inner courtyard's disciple's strength, but Chen Xiang had now entered the 10th level of the mortal martial realm. Obviously his strength had been greatly elevated, however, up to what level was that elevation? When Yan Xiaodao and Zhu Rong thought about this point, their whole body could not help but be covered in goosebumps, because it was too frightening. You dare or not dare to go? If you don't dare to go, I can by myself go, and at that time you can also live in that martial courtyard, Chen Xiang said, and 1 against 10 he was still very confident. Do not look down upon me, although it has not been long since I've entered the inner courtyards, but if I tried my best, then those guys of the first-ranked inner courtyard also count for nothing. Yan Xiaodao clenched his teeth and ruthlessly said, those guys and I are going to fight, let's go. Chen Xiang and Yan Xiaodao both were looking at Zhu Rong, because in their impression Zhu Rong was a petty and timid fatty, and didn't have any fighting capacity. Zhu Rong, seeing them looking at him with an expression of contempt in their eyes, ignited a fire in his heart, and loudly said, You two bastards, are you looking down on me? Tell you what, this father's looks is just to confuse others, and my true strength is very shocking. Aren't you just going to risk your life just to fight those first-ranked inner courtyards guys? Why shouldn't I dare? Father for a long time ago wanted to do that. Haha, seeing this dead fatty's face, I reckon that those people will wet their pants. Yen Xiaodao laughed and said. Don't talk nonsense, let's go now, Zhu Rong spat and said. Chen Xiang too loudly laughed, and then took the lead and walked towards the 16th martial courtyard. On the streets of the extreme martial sect, 3 people with soaring slaughter chi were walking. In the middle there was a robust and handsome youth, and on either side of this youth there was a thin and small teenager, and a chubby little fat boy. Looking at their age, all of them were below 20 years old, but at the moment slaughter chi was rising from them, and their eyes were fully belligerent. Seeing them, the people around could not help but make way for them. That guy seems to be Chen Xiang. He is the guy who crippled Fang Liang with just one move, and he came from the secular world. He is also the one who received a true martial realm alchemist as his apprentice, and won first place in this year's alchemy competition. Moreover, he is also a thorn in Elder Dan's eyes, a man whispered. Because Chen Xiang in these 10 days didn't do anything, so after the integration of the peerless martial sect, the peerless martial sect disciples also knew nothing about him, but now after hearing Chen Xiang's various deeds, they too could not help but become surprised. Fatty, what are you planning to do? At this time a middle-aged man with a long beard arrived, and this man is Hao Dongqing, one true martial realm martial artist. When Chen Xiang arrived at the extreme martial sect, he got a little help from him. Lao Ju, we want to challenge the first-ranked inner courtyard. Want to come and take a look? Zhu Rong proudly smiled, and his words made everyone around him shocked. 3 people wanting to challenge the first-ranked inner courtyard. This made everyone feel that Chen Xiang and the other 2 were idiots, actually wanting to do such crazy thing. Han Dongqing was also surprised, but when he saw Chen Xiang's pair of resolute pupils, he then faintly smiled. You fatty found one good friend, finally able to do outrageous things. Such a good thing, I will help you publicize, and I will go to fellow apprentices and ask them to watch it together, while conveniently doing a little gambling. Hao Dongqing left, and everyone around them too left, because these 3 idiots wanted to challenge the first-ranked inner courtyard, and such a good show they obviously wanted to watch it with their friends. First-ranked inner courtyard. That was the 16th martial courtyard, and there was only a 1 rank difference from the true disciples' martial courtyard, but the location was very different. Now the martial courtyard from the 1st to 15th have been moved inside the mysterious realm, and the disciples all enjoyed the rich spirit chi. Outside the mysterious realm, only the martial courtyards above the rank of 16th were located there. The 16th martial courtyard was rather very large, and this was originally the first martial courtyard, which looked like one manor. In the middle of where it was located was one very large tourney field which was currently full of people. All the people who were roping and others were the disciples of this martial courtyard, and all of others were either outer sect disciples or the inner sect disciples. Good fellas, they even have guards. Yen Xiaodao standing in that giant door cried, and listening to the sounds coming from the inside he was very shocked. Watching the tens of thousands of people in the huge square, he could not help but lament. Is this not a martial courtyard? This was simply one small city for training troops? This was the first-ranked inner courtyard's most compelling location, and the extreme martial sect's elders didn't oppose disciples forming a gang as long as they had not violated any sect rules, so they were allowed to form a gang. We just want this nameplate. Zhu Rong pointed at one nameplate next to the entrance, and as long as they won the challenge, they would be able to hang this number plate in front of their own courtyard, and would be able to get great benefits. Chen Xiang slightly sucked a deep breath, interrupted the sounds and said, the 500th martial courtyard came to challenge your courtyard, and the stakes are 5 metal spirit fruits. If you accept the challenge, please quickly come out to discuss. The noisy 16th martial courtyard suddenly quieted down, and Chen Xiang used his vigorous true chi to emit his voice, making it spread throughout every corner of this martial courtyard, making everyone hear it clearly. But the people inside were skeptical, and they thought they have heard wrong, because the challenge turned out to be from the 500th martial courtyard, and one must know usually the martial courtyards who came to challenge were generally below the 50th rank. But those metal spirit fruits were indeed very attractive. The outside of the 16th martial courtyard was surrounded by many people, all of them had heard the news and hurriedly came over to watch a good show. A man with a delicate and pretty appearance came out, as the fair-skinned handsome boy showed himself. Chen Xiang heard many girls screaming behind him. It's Mo Yuan, the man on top of the 10 most handsome males list. I finally got to meet him, one girl screamed. Mo Yuan had a calm smile on his face, and was very charming. Indeed, it was quite lethal for many females as he looked like a gentle refined scholar. Although he was a first-ranked inner courtyard's disciple, he was not an arrogant person. At this moment, behind Mo Yuan a man appeared. When this man looked at others, his eyes were definitely squinted and he had a look of pride on his face, making many onlookers have an impulse to beat him. Squinted Snake. Yuan Xiaodao shouted in shock. He had never thought that this guy actually belonged to the first-ranked inner courtyard. Listen clearly, my name is Xu Weilong Xu Weilong. Do not call me that, that man shouted. Mo Yuan had a faint smile. You should be Chen Xiang, I've heard a lot about you. After I came to know about you, I thought that I would run into you sooner or later, yet I did not expect it to be so fast. We happily accept your challenge, feel free to choose the time. Mo Yuan gave a very good impression on everyone, so Chen Xiang slightly smiled and stated, today is good. Zhu Rong said, let's discuss the challenge rules, after all we only have 3 people. Mo Yuan laughed and said, you will have to be at a bit of a disadvantage then because we have 10 people who competed for this martial courtyard and ultimately won. That is why whenever someone comes to challenge us, all 10 will obviously take it upon themselves. You 3 must defeat all of us to win, it will be a one-on-one battle and whoever loses cannot fight again. This Mo Yuan had an excellent temperament and hadn't looked down upon the opposite party just because they had 3 people. Besides, he must do so to uphold his status and win. More and more people arrived. The first-ranked inner courtyard, whether it was inside or outside, had been filled by other disciples. There were more than tens of thousands of disciples, and they were all observing the discussion happening at the entrance. For them, this was a great show to talk about. Also, it was a very good chance for the newly incorporated peerless martial sect disciples to take a look at the strength of the first-ranked inner courtyard of the extreme martial sect. More than a dozen true martial realm martial artists had come over as well, but many of the disciples had not yet recognized them. These people were all called out by Hao Dongqing to join in the fun. 3 against 10, this was indeed very disadvantageous. Many people thought that winning this was not at all possible. After all, they were fighting against the first-ranked inner courtyard's disciples. All of them were halfway to the true martial realm, and their strength was unfathomable. Although Chen Xiang had blossomed in a radiant splendor during his inner sect assessment, nobody was that optimistic about him. Not to mention Yuan Xiaodao looked more like a child while Zhu Rong, this type of fat man, looked more like a very good bully. No problem, we are ready, Chen Xiang said. While coming over, they had already learned of these rules. Good, now let us start. Just as Mo Yuan was about to finish his sentence, an interrupting voice came from far away. Wait, I have to ask Chen Xiang something. If it is confirmed, then the competition will not be carried out. A bald old man with white eyebrows suddenly appeared in front of Chen Xiang's group. This was Wu Kaming. Just a moment ago, his voice had sounded very serious. When everyone heard his tone they already knew that a major event had occurred. Besides, Elder Wu seemed very dignified right now. Chen Xiang, during the period of time when you went to investigate the Heavenly Dragon treasure, did you kill 10 Beast Martial Sect inner disciples? Wu Kaming asked, intently looking at him. Yes. Chen Xiang was actually surprised in his heart. He knew that these things would eventually be transmitted back, but he had not thought the consequences would be so serious. After all, it was the Beast Martial Sect who were in the wrong. When Wu Kaming appeared, the crowd had quieted down. After hearing this information, everyone could not help but be surprised. Chen Xiang had actually killed another sect's inner sect disciples, moreover it was 10 of them. This matter was very serious. Wu Kaming nodded his head and asked, so is it true that you also killed one of the Beast Martial Sect's true disciples in the mysterious realm? As these words went out, it was as if an explosion happened in everyone's minds. Their thoughts went blank and their eyes were wide open. Their mouths were wide open as everybody stared at Chen Xiang. To their utter shock, Chen Xiang had killed a true disciple. That was a martial artist in the true martial realm. Had Chen Xiang attained strength comparable to that of the true martial realm? How was that possible? He was only 17 years old. Chen Xiang looked calm as he nodded his head in response, saying, yes, I took advantage of her being injured and killed her, otherwise she would have killed me. What is wrong with me doing this? Should all extreme martial sect disciples willingly get slaughtered by Beast Martial Sect's true disciples? Everyone sucked in a long deep breath. Chen Xiang only took advantage of the other party while they were weakened after they attacked him. His words indicated that Chen Xiang had not yet entered the true martial realm, but they were still extremely shocked. To kill another sect's true disciple was an extremely serious matter. If it had been me, I would have used a single sword to get rid of them, Yuan Xiaodao said, yet in his heart he was secretly blaming Chen Xiang as he didn't inform them of this sort of thing. Killing them is good. Those people from the Beast Martial Sect have been too proud, already saying that they have transcended our extreme martial sect. Hao Dongqing jeered as several other true martial realm martial artists cried out in support. Most of them were shocked because they knew very well how strong those in the true martial realm were. To their surprise, a true martial realm martial artist had been killed by a little devil in the mortal martial realm. Chen Xiang, I know the reasons behind your actions and I am sure that it was not false. I am also extremely furious but the Beast Martial Sect demanded us to come up with evidence. Unfortunately we do not currently have any evidence to support any of your actions. Wu Keiming said, and he knew that Chen Xiang had killed the beast martial sect disciples because they had been feeding extreme martial province civilians to their demon beasts. When he had learned of this, he was extremely furious and wanted to gather all disciples immediately to go and forcibly demand an explanation from the beast martial sect or destroy all of them. The dean as well as Elder Dan have gone behind closed doors for training. We have to wait until they have come out, as only they can make this sort of important decision. I also have to consider the overall situation, as such I will have to put you in detention, Wu Keiming said. Chen Xiang nodded his head in response. He understood what Wu Keiming said very well. This detention was only because the beast martial sect were observing them, and Wu Keiming had to do so because of the long-term perspective, needing to wait for Elder Dan or the dean to come out of their closed-door cultivation. It's good that you understand, but you are also to blame for starting off so ruthlessly. You turned every single one of their corpses in meat patties. Furthermore, you had intended to kill a dozen more true marital realm martial artists who were unable to move. Fortunately, you did not succeed, otherwise the extreme martial set would have been besieged by at least 2 different sects. Wu Keiming lamented. He had learned from the information given that at that time, Chen Xiang had a very high intention to kill. If he was given a little bit of time, the other true martial realm martial artists would likely have also been reduced to meat patties. These words gave everyone twice as much stimulation as before. Chen Xiang had only went out once, yet he had done such earth-shaking things. At this moment, everyone realized why Chen Xiang dared to challenge the first-ranked inner courtyard. He had dared to slaughter true martial realm martial artists. Why wouldn't he dare to do such a thing? Such strength, such courage, these characteristics made everyone marvel in awe and deeply admire him. Xiaodao, Lao Zhu, wait for my return. Chen Xiang left this sentence before leaving with Wu Keiming. Yan Xiaodao took a deep breath, said, dead fatty, when he comes back we are not allowed to disappoint him. Zhu Rong laughed and said, obviously, this brat's deeds are always so terrible. The question is whether or not we can also do 1 or 2 such things before he comes out, otherwise the both of us are going to embarrass him. Yan Xiaodao laughingly said, dead fatty, your courage is growing bigger and bigger, let's go. Yan Xiaodao and Zhu Rong left as the crowd dispersed. They were all very disappointed they were unable to watch the competition, but gratified they had seen Chen Xiang, this man of legends. Both Mo Yuan and Xu Weilong's complexion became somewhat dignified. If it was before, they perhaps would not have paid any attention to Chen Xiang, but now Chen Xiang had killed 10 beast martial sect's inner sect disciples, and a beast martial sect's true disciple. They knew Chen Xiang was not an ordinary character. Even if the true disciple was injured, her strength was still very strong, but ultimately she had become meat patty by Chen Xiang. Wu Keiming led Chen Xiang into the mysterious realm inside, and walked towards the depths of a high mountain. Elder Wu, where are we going? Chen Xiang asked. We're going to the forbidden land of the extreme martial sect, which is dedicated for detentioning repeat offenders. This place is known to all tycoons of the Chenwu mainland's major sects. After an extreme martial sect disciple commits a great sin, locking the disciples here allows the other sect to have great satisfaction. Wu Keiming sighed and said, the extreme martial sect disciples locked here in all likelihood dies, but I hope you can handle it. Chen Xiang in his heart was startled, asked, generally how does everybody die? They die of old age, or their mind cannot stand the torment, Wu Keiming said. There is no escape out of it? Chen Xiang asked with surprise. Unless the dean commands, otherwise whoever escapes has to die, so you have to stay in there till the dean exits from his closed-door training. Wu Keiming had a look of fear in his eyes. That forbidden land was established by the master of the extreme martial sect's founder. It has a bizarre power, and even if the character standing at the peak of the martial world goes in there, they are unable to escape even if given wings. Here it is not only for detentioning extreme martial sect's people, but also other sect's people, but they all are dead. Chen Xiang's heartbeat became extremely quick, and he had not expected he was actually going to be locked in such a frightening place. After a little less than half an hour, Chen Xiang, who was following behind Wu Keiming, was running. He was going to be imprisoned, and surprisingly he also had to run while following others. This made him not know whether to laugh or cry. They arrived next to a 100-jang wide dark sinkhole, the bottom of which was not visible. Chen Xiang leaned over on one side and looked, released his spiritual power, but still could not in any way probe the other end of the sinkhole. Under this is where you're going, Wu Keiming said. Can I not go? Chen Xiang in his heart felt jittery, because it was full of freezing cold death chi below. It was very frightening, and its bottom was very deep and not visible. Wu Keiming mischievously laughed. Go down. After he finished speaking, like lightning, he kicked Chen Xiang's ass, and kicked him down. Old baldy, fuck your mothers. From below came Chen Xiang's various sickening curses. Chen Xiang had not at all expected that after falling down, he actually would not be able to use his true chi. He could not release vermilion birdfire wing, and if he fell down like this, he would be very seriously injured. This brat's curses are really ugly. Oh well, the bitterness that he is going to taste below makes me feel a little better. In the future I'll do less of such a thing. Every time I have had to bear these curses. Wu Keiming shaking his head sighed, then left. Chen Xiang fell for a good while, only to see some bright light below which was a bunch of flames. The more he looked below the darker it was, but it was faintly illuminated by firelight. Chen Xiang could see sparkling waves, below there was water. Splash, Chen Xiang fell into the water and in that moment, he noticed he could use his true qi. He hurried to swim out of the water, watching that heap of flame. What made Chen Xiang surprised was the fact that next to those flames there actually was an old man. This old man had long hair up to his waist, and those white hairs were messy as well as dirty, but his face didn't have any wrinkles, not even a little trace of being old. His long beard looked ordinary, and if he tidied himself, he would certainly look like a celestial sage. Brat, say something. The old man, with his pair of brightly lit eyes, looked at Chen Xiang. At this time Chen Xiang became alert, in order to not get attacked by this old man. Hello mister, said Chen Xiang. From before he knew this was the forbidden land of the extreme martial sect specialized for detentioning repeat offenders, and they had been held here until they died of old age. That old man suddenly started laughing, quickly arrived beside Chen Xiang. He was extremely quick, and Chen Xiang simply had no time to escape. His wrist was grabbed by that old man, followed by a peculiar power getting poured into his body. He also hurriedly operated the Tai Chi divine exercise. To Chen Xiang's utter shock, this old man even probed his Dantian's situation, and that was one of Chen Xiang's most confidential secrets. Turned out to be a yin and yang divine vein. Unrivaled genius, God, you finally did a great thing, and finally sent someone to inherit my mantle, ha ha. That old man maniacally started laughing. The old man quickly started laughing, but just as quickly he immediately stopped too. In the next moment he became serious, and said, starting today, I'm your teacher, quickly take me as your teacher. Chen Xiang in his heart was shocked, because the matter of his yin and yang divine veins had been known by this insane old man. He couldn't help it but admire this insane old man. I do not even know your name, and you want me to pay respect to you as a teacher? Chen Xiang pursing his lips said, and he knew this old man was very formidable. Previously when he grabbed him, even with all of his power he wasn't even able to offer a little resistance. The old man reorganized his hair, smiled and said, I had not expected that with your wee bit strength you were actually thrown here. Tell me what kind of outrageous thing did you do outside? This old man unexpectedly no matter what, continued to acknowledge himself as Chen Xiang's teacher. I killed a true disciple and 10 intersect disciples of the beast martial sect. Chen Xiang truthfully said, and asked rhetorically, how about you? Looking at your appearance, you should have been staying here for a long time. Hearing Chen Xiang's words, that old man in turn once again started wildly and maniacally laughing, as well as slapping the ground and rolling over the ground. This is simply the heaven's will. You killed the beast martial sect's true disciple, and I killed the beast martial sect's dean. You definitely should take me as a teacher, and I'll pass you a powerful martial skill. That old man laughed and said. Chen Xiang was petrified for a moment. He totally had not expected this old man would have killed the beast martial sect's dean, but he didn't believe even a little bit of the words of this old man. Little devil, do not doubt my words. I'm the extreme martial sect's 13th generation dean, Huang Jishan. By the way, which generation is the dean now? Huang Jishan asked. Chen Xiang was once again surprised for a moment. He had certainly heard the name of Huang Jishan. He was the dean before the former dean. A long time ago he committed something serious, and then on his own he entered the Forbidden Land. Previously Chen Xiang had seen this in the extreme martial sect's books and in the records. He had not expected to actually encounter this guy. The current dean is Jiyu Dongchengu Dongxian, 15th generation. At this point he was also very respectful to this old madman in front of him. After all, this old man once was a dean, but he also had killed the beast martial sect's dean. Hey, that little featherhead is but my apprentice grandson, that nameless little girl is my second apprentice granddaughter, and that little bald is my third apprentice grandson. They're all right. Huang Jishan laughed and said, his smile was very amiable. Chen Xiang was very surprised. He had not expected the 3 tycoons of the extreme martial sect actually to be this Huang Jishan's apprentice grandchild's. The apprentice of Huang Jishan's was the teacher of those 3 tycoons. That nameless little girl is Elder Dan, extreme martial sect's Dan King, little bald is Wu Keiming. Both of them are extreme martial sect elders. Just a moment ago I had been kicked down by that old baldy. Chen Xiang angrily said, at this time his ass was still paining. Huang Jishan laughed and said, they are simply good. If you take me as your teacher, later on they will become your martial nephew. For a genius like you, killing a true disciple is still nothing. You absolutely cannot keep this for long. You have the yin and yang divine vein, so you definitely will be able to learn my dragon-slaying divine martial exercise. Chen Xiang in his heart was excited, trying to figure out whether or not take him as his teacher. He then asked Su Meiyao and Bai Yu inside the ring, to solicit their opinion. Take him as your teacher. You are going to stay here for some time anyway, so you can learn another dragon-slaying divine martial exercise. Besides, this senior position can allow you not to be suppressed by others in the extreme martial sect, Su Meiyao said. Huang Jishan looking proudly said, I, Huang Jishan, have taken only one apprentice, and he was the extreme martial sect's 14th generation dean, and the student surpassed his teacher. Now he has ascended to the heaven martial world, and that is the immortal domain from the legends. Just because I've committed a grave crime, I stayed here to repent. Chen Xiang in his heart was surprised, and fiercely knelt, teacher. Seeing Chen Xiang paying respect, Huang Jishan touched his chin, and mischievously smiled. This Huang Jishan was very exquisite, and to Chen Xiang's surprise, when he was taken in as his apprentice, he actually had to write a contract. Each person wrote on a paper, afterwards dropped blood on it, but they also infused their own unique true qi in it. After the cumbersome apprentice and master contract was complete, both sides would retain their contracts, which was used to prove that they voluntarily became master and apprentice. Hey, my good apprentice, next I'll pass my most powerful, dragon-slaying divine martial exercise to you. You just need to study harder. In future you have to seek your great senior brother, and let him take care of you. Huang Jishan laughed, and started tidying his messy hair. Chen Xiang too was brilliantly smiling, teacher, do those apprentice grandchildren of yours in future have to call me martial uncle? Huang Jishan after thinking, patted Chen Xiang's head, you brat, you're good. Originally you had this goal. The seniority cannot be messed with, so of course they have to revere you as their martial uncle. By the way, you cannot expose I'm your teacher, and do not look at me like I'm crazy. I know out there are a lot of people who hate me, and if they came to know you're my apprentice, then you'll be in trouble. Chen Xiang was stunned for a moment, smiled and said, teacher, originally you were using this place as your refuge? Bah, your teacher is quite powerful, using this place to seek refuge? I'm here to repent and start anew, otherwise I would have already went to that dogshit immortal domain. Huang Jishan once again patted Chen Xiang's head, you brat, after you go outside do not casually expose you're my apprentice, and although it is very prestigious position, it can be truly troublesome. Chen Xiang pursed his lips, whispered, what is this, accepting I'm your apprentice, just like a mouse in hiding. Brat, you listen to me, indeed part of the reason for your teacher to be staying here is to escape, but repenting is also true, I'm hiding here, in order to avoid them snatching my dragon-slaying divine martial exercise. There are various kind of dragon-slaying divine martial exercise, but all of them have 3, 6 or 9 levels, and I have the highest rank. Even all those shitty immortals want to get it, Huang Jishan seriously said. Chen Xiang was still somewhat doubtful, said, teacher, I also have dragon martial technique. Chen Xiang wanted to tell Huang Jishan about the dragon aura technique, only to see Huang Jishan contemptuously saying, dragon aura? This kind of dragon martial technique, in my eyes, are all inferior stuff, and only able to play out some of the strength of a no-good little dragon. Truly powerful dragon force, if learned well, can even allow you to kill an adult dragon. Dragon aura can only simulate the dragon breath's chi aura. While speaking, Huang Jishan stretched out his palm, only to see a little whitish ball emerging out from his palm, but as soon as this aura appeared, Chen Xiang immediately felt hundreds of thousands of jin of pressure pounding on him. He was like a small boat in the middle of a storm, and in the blink of an eye he flew far away from the impact of that vast power. Chen Xiang hit the other side of the wall, but his body was actually stuck because of the strong pressure falling on top of his body, making him feel very uncomfortable. He emitted a bray. At the same time he also saw the space around Huang Jishan's palm actually starting to slightly twist. This was space distortion. Huang Jishan proudly smiled as he retracted the little ball of whitish aura in his palm. Far away Chen Xiang also fell down into the water, then slowly swam and arrived next to the fire. Now you see your teacher is formidable, Huang Jishan, looking at the dazed Chen Xiang lying on the ground, laughed and said. At this point there was no strength left in Chen Xiang's whole body. He was lying on the ground panting, and he was completely speechless. In his heart he was very terrified, and he was secretly shocked by his teacher's strength. In his opinion, he was far stronger than the elder Dan. Just a little ball of true qi could create spatial distortion. What would happen if all of his power was released? Chen Xiang did not dare to imagine such a situation, and this might was simply catastrophic. This old man's strength has long transcended the highest peak of the mortal world. Your teacher is a one through and through immortal. He hides inside this particular mysterious realm just to avoid attracting the heavenly realm's power, or else if he went outside, he would be certainly sucked up. Su Meiyao was very surprised too. Bai Yu seriously said, it seems he was telling the truth. His dragon-slaying divine martial exercise is even envied by people from the heavenly realms. He is hiding here in order to avoid getting hunted down. If he went to the legendary heaven martial world with such strength, that would be very dangerous for him. At this point, although Chen Xiang's whole body was in pain, in his heart he was secretly pleased, because he picked up a cheap teacher who was so formidable. Little devil, previously what your teacher used was dragon force. It is a very strong power bred by dragons, isn't it very formidable? If an adult dragon appeared in the mortal world, it only needs to swing his tail, and in the blink of an eye it can destroy the whole mortal world. Huang Jishan's face was full of fear when he mentioned dragons. Huang Jishan went up to Chen Xiang, and slapped down a few times on Chen Xiang's body. Chen Xiang only felt a kind of bizarre cool power rushing into his body, making the pain immediately disappear from his body. I have a yin and yang profound vein, your great senior brother has a yin and yang heaven vein, and you have a yin and yang divine vein. In the future you'll transcend me and your great senior brother. Spiritual vein, profound vein, heaven vein, and divine vein. Each one rarer compared to the predecessor, and more formidable too. The yin and yang veins were even rarer, and Chen Xiang had not expected that both his own teacher and great senior brother, that he had never met, would have yin and yang veins. In the extreme martial sect, those powerful young disciples mostly had profound or heaven veins, but all of them hid it. Chen Xiang reckoned that Yan Xiaodao and Zhu Rong were profound or heaven vein martial artists. You also have a Tai Chi yin and yang diagram in your dantian, right? Hey, those who have this stuff are most suited to cultivate using the Tai Chi subduing dragon divine exercise. Huang Jishan laughed and said. Su Meiyao and Bai Yuyu, who heard the word of Tai Chi subduing dragon divine exercise, they could not help but let out a shocked cry. It turned out to be the Tai Chi subduing dragon divine exercise. I had not thought it really existed, Su Meiyao said while shocked. It is said that the Tai Chi divine exercise was branched out from improving the Tai Chi subduing dragon divine exercise, and in the first place what we have is just a remnant version of it. That's why it is far inferior to the Tai Chi subduing dragon divine exercise, Bai Yuyu said while surprised. Huang Jishan with a mischievous smile said, Brat, I'll not ask about your confidential secret, and I know you cultivate other martial arts too. Though they look good, they are not perfect enough, and is likely to be a remnant of the Tai Chi subduing dragon divine exercise. But soon you will be able to learn the complete Tai Chi subduing dragon divine exercise. Chen Xiang nodded his head, humbly asked him to teach him. An old man and a youth in the pitch-dark bottomless abyss. The old man, without respite, imparted some martial art mnemonics to the youth, and while doing so both of them were very serious. 1 month went by, and Chen Xiang, in order to completely recite the Tai Chi subduing dragon divine exercise, he completely carved it into his brain. At this time he knew how harsh the requirements were to cultivate using the Tai Chi subduing dragon divine exercise. First and foremost one must have yin and yang veins, but there were still many people who wanted to snatch this dragon-slaying divine martial exercise, even if they could not cultivate it, but from reorganizing it they could also create some powerful martial arts, just like the Tai Chi divine exercise. In Chen Xiang's ring Su Meiyao and Bai Yuyu also memorized the Tai Chi subduing dragon divine exercise, and though they could not cultivate it, but they had already started to create martial arts according to this powerful, dragon-slaying divine martial exercise. Although this process was very difficult, but residing inside they also had nothing to do, and they had a lot of time on their hands. Memorize, and now I will start correcting your training method. Fortunately you still have not entered the true martial realm, or it would have been too late, Huang Jishan said, and then once again started maniacally laughing.